And now that we've covered the automotive service industry and physical resources, we're going to go into this chapter covering manpower resources. Okay, and the main thing we're going to do is define the job positions, the responsibilities of each of the positions, and distinguish a unique combination of knowledge and skills to perform the job. So let's go in and talk about some key terms. The service cashier, you're going to be expected to know this. That's the person that's responsible for billing, collecting money. Now the dispatcher, this is the person that assigns the repairs to the technicians. Okay, they got to be responsible for knowing the deadlines, knowing how to promise the work, and to make the best use of the skills. So I got to know which one of my technicians are the best suited for different jobs. The claims administrator, okay, he's responsible for determining the labor operation code, the flat rate times, processing the repair order, and the technician pay. So the technician will write up the job. The claims administrator will be the one that uses that and the flat rate manual to determine what that technician gets paid. The shop foreman is the person in the shop that supervises all the operations. Okay, he's also the lead guy in the shop. He helps in diagnosis and repair across the shop. He works with his technicians and kind of keeps them managed. Now the service advisor is the customer contact. He's the one that's talking to the customer. The first one the customer sees when he gets to the shop. Okay, he prepares the repair order document, make sure he asks the right questions to help lead the technician on the correct path to diagnosing it. Now directly under the shop foreman is the lead technician. Okay, he's your go-to guy, the one that solves the most important jobs, or not the most important, but the most difficult that other technicians might not have the technical experience to solve. Okay, the porter is the guy that moves and cleans the vehicle, and he assists in general upkeep of the vehicles. Of course, the parts specialist identifies, locates, provides, and properly prices out parts as needed by the service technician. The technician is the guy that's responsible for verifying concerns, resolving the customer concern, and fixing the vehicle. The customer relations specialist, okay, they contact the customer after they've picked up the car to see if they're satisfied with the service they've received at the shop, and they try to get any problems they've encountered and try to pass them on where they can be solved. The service manager is responsible for supervising, motivating, and directing personnel in all the service department. A lot of times the parts department and all these positions fall under the service manager a lot of times. The service director, he's kind of responsible for the service department, body shop, and parts director, sometimes called a general manager. The flat rate manual is the manual we use to tell us how much time a particular job will take. Okay, the way service technicians are paid is, if it calls for 2 hours on a job, for example, they're going to get paid for 2 hours regardless of how long it takes them to fix it. So let's go on and look into these problems more in depth. Okay, and of course, if we go back here to this slide just for a minute, all these positions, you know, we're talking about a large shop. You go into a smaller shop, you'll probably see a lot of these jobs getting done by the same person. So each shop won't necessarily have all these positions. In fact, some shops may just run with a lead technician and technicians and probably somebody in billing if it's a really small shop. So we're gonna work on a grand scale and talk about what each one does, but then realize that this may not always be the case with every shop. Okay, so what's the service cashier doing? She, might be a he. They're reviewing and calculating the repair or the service invoice. They're also responsible for notifying the customers. Your car's ready for pickup. Okay, they've got to file the paperwork. They've got to greet the customer when they arrive to pick up their vehicle. and they've got to process the payment for repairs and provide the customer copies of their service record and a receipt for their payment. The important thing for the service cashier is this is the last person the customer will see, and the one that's going to leave the lasting impact on that customer. So we want a people-friendly, people person for a service cashier. Okay, what kind of skills does that service cashier need? Let me go back. The service cashier is going to need accounting skills, okay, accounting skills, filing skills, okay, organizational skills, cashiering, other direct customer communications. It's important that this service cashier be financially savvy and also be a people person, because they're going to be communicating with our employees. Now the dispatcher, the football coach in the shop, they're calling the plays. Okay, they get the repair order information. Okay, it's written up by the repair order, is written up by the service advisor and given to the dispatcher. So now the dispatcher has a pile of repair orders. They look out in the shop and they say, well, this is an electrical problem. Okay, Joe's pretty good with electrical. I'm going to give this to Joe. Here's a brake problem. Will's pretty good with brakes. I'm giving that to Will. So they're the ones that knows their technician's strengths and weaknesses, and they divvy up those jobs so they go to the correct person. Okay, they're also responsible for, if they promise the job, they need to make sure that job is done by that time and get it out on time. And you can see how this might cause problems with the technician, because you've got one person promising the job and the technician's saying, well, how in the world are we going to get it out on that particular time? Well, the dispatcher, although it's not really critical that they are technicians, they do really need to know the technician's job, so they know exactly how to when to promise the job, and whether or not it's realistic to think that that technician can get the job out in that amount of time. Okay, the dispatcher also, needs to be able to think on his feet, as it says in your text on page 23. Okay, what about if a technician gets sick, or if a job takes 3 times as long as you originally thought it was? Now all this stuff the dispatcher has to take into account. The booker, or the claims administrator. Okay, they evaluate the repair order and determine what the technician should be paid for the repair. Now they're consulting the flat rate manual and also the technician's write-up of what was done. Now technicians always want to know, well, why do I got to take English when I'm out here at college? Why do I need to write? Well, the employers tell us by and far, especially in a dealership, and this is one of the most critical things that a technician needs to do, because if the job's not written up right, that means the dealership's not paid right. So they're looking for technicians that can do this stuff. Okay, so we're talking about, they're looking up what was requested. We'll change the water pump. Okay, what was authorized? We need to call anytime that we give that customer an estimate, and the estimate changes. We need to call that customer and tell them, look, we're going to change your water pump, but there was 2 bolts that broke off, and of course that's going to take a little extra labor to get that out. Now it's important the technician write that up, because the technician wants to get paid for all the time he's spending on that vehicle. Okay, the claims administrator, or also known as the booker, is going to use those labor standard books to determine the number of hours and to try to be fair and consistent in charging the customer and paying the technician. Now if the labor manual says that it's going to take an hour to do a brake job, but then you find out that the brakes were rusty, 3 bolts are wrung off in them, the rotors were half tore all to pieces. I mean, any claims administrator thinks, well, I've got to be fair to my customer, but I can't rob my technician to satisfy my customer. I've got to strike that balance and find a place where the customer's happy and the technician's happy, and that it's fair. That's the most critical part. Now we'll talk about the shop foreman. Okay, the shop foreman is the coordinator of day-to-day activities in the shop, and of course here minute-to-minute activities in the shop. They coordinate all the activities in a shop. Okay, he's got to provide guidance. He's got to have brain power. He's got to be able, in some cases, to assist his technician with the jobs. Okay, he's got to maintain the productivity of the shop and coordinate the activities in the shop. He's got to provide training for less experienced technicians. So perhaps the shop foreman is working with training companies to try to bring some people in to train people, or maybe they're working with electronic or satellite-based training. They got to make sure that technicians are meeting the training requirements. They assist the service advisor with verifying the cause of customer complaint and developing an estimate of the cost. The shop foreman is the guy that says, okay, look, when you do that estimate, whenever we take this water hose loose, there's always a fitting right there that breaks, and that's going to take the technician an extra hour to get out, so you may want to go ahead and factor that into the estimate. So he's also doing quality check repairs. We want to make sure that our technicians are doing the job correctly, safely, and that we minimize comebacks. So I'm watching my technicians to make sure, as a shop foreman, that they're not cutting corners that could end up biting us later. So what about the service advisor? Okay, we say he's the face of the company, the frontline employee. He's the one that's meeting with the customer and the customer contact. He's the one that's talking to them on the telephone and in person. He's the one that's scheduling appointments. He's writing up the repair orders. Okay, like I said, he's got to know how to ask the right questions. The technician in a lot of your bigger shops and dealerships is not directly talking to the customer. So the only information he gets from the vehicle is what the service advisor has asked that customer. So with that being the case, that service advisor has to ask everything that the technician would have asked and write it up on the repair order so the technician knows what to look at. Okay. They also perform general diagnosis of complaints through observation and questioning. Okay. They recommend needed service to customer based on time, mileage, and observation. So if that car comes in the shop and the service advisor sees, okay, it's been 40,000 miles or 60,000 miles and this thing calls for a timing belt change, it's his job to advise that customer and say, look, okay, your manual says you need to change the timing belt. It could cause extensive damage to the engine if it's not changed. Okay, so, you might want to consider having that changed. We can do it for you, and it'll cost this. Okay, so that's kind of the job that the service advisor does. Okay, notify the customer of the repair process. Okay, repair progress, I'm sorry. We promised you this car was going to be in at 4 o'clock, and I apologize, but the job turned out to be a little larger. It might be the morning and before we can get this thing back to you. So they're going to be the one corresponding. And the repairs and the bills, he's got to verify that repair was made correctly and the billing was done correctly. So those are all the jobs of that service advisor. Okay, now, you got to be a people person to be a service advisor. Okay, sometimes you may interact with up to 30 to 50 people a day. You'll follow up on 20 or more repair orders a day. I mean, it's a lot of stuff that a service advisor has to do. I mean, they're managing a 3-ring circus all day. Now, the lead technician is the head guy in the shop. He's the fellow you want to come to when you've got that nagging problem that you really can't figure out. This guy's the guy that's been trained. This guy's the head of the pecking order and can solve most of your difficult problems. Okay, maybe he doesn't directly solve the problem, but he tells the other technicians. The technician might say, I've checked this, and this. What else is it? Well, you might want to go here and try this. Have you looked at this? And he gives that technician under him some of the knowledge that technician needs to solve the problem on its own, with the hopes that through that training, that technician will learn that thinking process, and the other technician can solve the problem the next time on his own. So that's your good lead technician. Now, what about your porter? Okay, the porter, if you've got this in the shop, a lot of times the technician is responsible, but the technician, sometimes they'll get a little dirty and we can't get in the customer vehicle when that happens. So when the technician's finished with the job, a lot of shops hire a porter that will move that vehicle from the write-up area back to the storage lot and get it into the shop. Okay, you might also have a porter that gives the customer rides to work. We're going to work on your car today. Let me take you to work. So another thing the porter might do is clean and detail the customer vehicles after repairs. Okay, and also new vehicles, pre-delivery inspection, PDI. If you ever hear that term, that's what they're talking about, pre-delivery inspection. Okay, if you carry the customer to work, you're kind of going to have to pick them up and return them to the shop to pick the car up. Okay, and they want to shuttle the customer's vehicle, so mainly we're driving the cars back and forth when the customer arrives to pick up the vehicle. They might run a variety of errands. They might pick up customers. They might pick up parts, tools, equipment, whatever's needed to get that work done. And they also do miscellaneous chores around the shop, such as housekeeping. So that's the porter job. A parts specialist has to identify and provide proper parts. They have to forecast and maintain inventory and a database of parts, demand and availability. You know, back to talking about obsolete parts taking up space on a shelf. You know, we got to have somebody that is able to, know by either offhand or probably by using a database that these parts don't move, so we probably don't need to stock that many of them, if any at all. Okay, also that parts specialist might say, okay, we don't have this in our dealership, but CarQuest down the road has it, so we need to send our porter down there to pick this up, and and we'll use that part on this car so we can get the car back to the customer at the promised time. Now the technician, considered the heart of the shop. He's a productive employee. In the labor, when we're talking about labor as our service, okay, this is the guy that's actually bringing money into the shop. Okay, he's diagnosing cars. He's pinpointing causes, verifying complaints. He's developing cost and time estimates, performing repairs, verifying that work's completed and has resolved the customer's concern. You notice a lot of people are doing that job right there. And the reason is the more people you have checking that work's completed and done correctly, the less chance you've got a comeback. The technician is also an important job is producing a written record of what was done. Okay, that's got to be done accurately. And you got to make sure the vehicle is returned to the original condition of cleanliness. We don't want to make a mess in the customer's vehicle. That's going to really negatively impact our ability to serve our customer. The customer relations specialist takes a proactive approach to ensure customer satisfaction. Instead of waiting for complaints and assuming if he doesn't hear any, the car is doing a good job, the place is doing a good job, they're actually calling customers and asking them, well, what did you think of your experience with our shop? We're trying to be proactive in identifying problems that the customer may see and not comment on, so that we can improve our shop before these problems become so large that they're unmanageable. Okay, they're conducting contacts with customers via the telephone. The service manager is a jack of all trades. It's responsible for smooth coordination of all jobs and functions in the repair shop. Okay, they're performing the following: operational and strategic planning. Okay, how's the business going to operate on a day-to-day? Okay, for operational, strategic planning, where do I see this company 2 years from now? What do we need to do to get it there? They're responsible for general management and leadership, financial measurement and analysis, organization and time management, customer relations and complaint handling, employee relations, hiring, discipline and firing, and evaluations, marketing, merchandising, and sales. And also they're responsible for workplace safety. So the manager's got a pretty big job. He's got to make sure that whole area runs smoothly. And also, so does the service director. Okay, he's very similar to the service manager, but is a larger scope. He's looking over the repair shop, the parts department, and the body shop. Now keep in mind, sometimes your service manager and service director are the same person. So they're not always different jobs. Depends on how big your shop is. That gives you a quick overview of this chapter, chapter 3. All three of these chapters are relatively short. You're talking about 33 pages, and you've got the first 3 chapters. So I strongly encourage you to read the chapters. Okay? We have technicians that are producing the labor sales. Okay, but they need a supporting cast. Okay, so technicians are the ones bringing in the money, but they also have to bring in enough money to support these other positions that aren't generating money but are necessary to the repair. Every shop needs to be customer friendly and efficient. And we won't go into the jobs. You know, some of these things you're going to have to do for... Well, let's look at this one. Okay, dispatcher. What does that dispatcher do? Did you say A? The dispatcher distributes the work to the shop. The customer relations specialist, what do? They contact the customers to ensure satisfaction. How about the auto technician? That's right, they perform the service repairs. That's a D. How about the service advisor? They prepare the customer repair order. E. And what about the cashier? They do B and process the final payment for services. The other questions I'm not going to go over because I'm going to give them to you this week as a review and your first assignment.